What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer, and I'm bringing you the second time I think I've ever done this, and that's a meta tier list. Now, I have a few less decks than last time. I don't want to go too long. Pretty much my opinion on any of the rogue strategies or casual are going to stay exactly the same. So if you really are curious to know how I feel about those other decks, you can go ahead and check out the last video I did. It wasn't too long ago, but I do feel like now that we've had two big tournaments, that one being the Luxury Championship Series 7, I don't whatever that means, but it was a huge tournament. It was an online tournament, 208 players, and we've also had a Pro Play Tours in-person tournament. So it's interesting. So now I feel like we have enough data to kind of look at it, see how decks play against each other, what could actually come up on top, and we're going to go from there. In any case, we're going to start off with Inframobile Knights, and I put them in Tier 2 before. I'm going to go ahead and put them in Tier 1 now. They have proven that they are a great, obviously, combo deck. Either they can work through Nibiru, or they're able to put up Negate before the Nibiru is effective, which is really cool. I hadn't necessarily been able to do that myself, although I really just did a really basic look into it. I did the basic combo, but I think combos have evolved a little bit since now. I don't think people are even using the Power Tool Synchro version. They're using different things now, which is really cool. Definitely deserving of a Tier 1. I still think Dragon Link is better in my opinion, but still definitely not a Tier 2 deck anymore. Very much going to be represented. I don't think it's the best deck of the format for sure. I mean, it hasn't won any tournaments since it's been popular in any of the online scenes, but we'll see. Maybe it will be able to sneak one out, which would be really big for the deck. It seems to be a pretty popular one. Any deck that can use Smoke Grenade is going to be really popular. Moving on, we have Phantom Knights, or I guess you can call it Burning Abyss. We'll call it either one. Really a deck that was pretty highly represented, but it's just not working out. I almost want to put it, you know what? I'm going to put it in Rogue. I don't think in either of the tournaments it had top 8 or top 16 representation. It definitely didn't in this Luxury Championship Series. I know everyone loves it, but it just seems to have too many choke points. It doesn't seem to be explosive enough. It doesn't seem to work through disruption nearly enough in a format where everybody's maining like 12 hand traps. So maybe I'll take a lot of heat for that one. I know it can make True King of all calamities, but that's assuming everything goes perfectly. So that's where it's going to stay for me right now. Dinosaur, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to put it in Tier 2, and that's for one specific reason. It doesn't have a good matchup against Virtual World, which is very popular right now. In this Luxury Championship Series, I think it was the second most represented deck. No, it was the most represented deck in all of them. So people are all over all over that strategy, and the power move for Dinosaurs is the ability to use Mystic Mine and use it effectively. Well, unfortunately for them, Virtual World does have a in-archetype out, and it's also accessible, like infinitely accessible. The trap card being that when it goes face up, it destroys a card on the field, which really hurts Dinosaurs. So this would be a Tier 1 deck if Virtual World didn't exist, but unfortunately it does. So I don't think you're going to see it in top cut as much as you would, because it's just going to naturally pick up losses, especially if the Virtual World archetype continues to be as popular as it is. Next is going to go for Prank Kids. I'm going to put Prank Kids in Rogue for now. Look, it is the best deck going into time because it does have that in-archetype burn, but it has shown no abilities in the past two tournaments to hit top cut at all. So I would feel wrong to put it in Tier 2. Tier 2 is one of those decks that you're going to see hit top cut every once in a while. But in this case, so far, we haven't seen any of it. And I know it can be super explosive, but it doesn't seem to be working out very well, especially going second. What's it going to do against a full Dragon Link board? I know it can fit a lot of hand traps, but if there's zero in-archetype ways to get through it, that's going to be a major problem. And even against Dinosaurs, I mean, what is it going to do going second against that? So it's depending on the dice roll a little too much for my opinion. So that's why I have it in the Rogue category. Up next, we have ABC, or Cyber Dragon, we'll call it. This does definitely deserve to be in Rogue. I have personally piloted this deck, and I see a lot of people running more pure Cyber Dragons, and I just don't understand it. So I'm thinking about maybe doing one of these online tournaments, seeing what I can do against it, but I have to imagine I have just as good a chance to break any of these boards as these other Rogue categories, and I'm much better going second than Prank Kids. So Hopefully I can definitely showcase that, maybe get into a tournament at some point. It deserves a rogue nod, and I said I've been saying I'm going to do that for a while, and here I am actually doing that. Coming up next is Eldlich. Oh man, it's had a rough go. It doesn't really have a home right now. It can't seem to be in Top Cut, so for the time being, I'm going to put this in... I'm going to put it in Rogue. I mean, again, I'm looking at this Luxury Championship Series right now. In terms of representation, it's not there, and it was not there for the Pro Play Tours one either. So I feel like putting it in Tier 2 to me would be a little too high. We'll see as time goes on, but that Jet and Seekeron ban was just too big for the deck, I think, to really go after. The Documatica version doesn't seem to be getting any momentum, which kind of sounds crazy because I feel like it should be. But it's until I see something that proves otherwise, I'm just going to put it here in Rogue. Up next is Outemancipators, and I think Outemancipators does deserve a little bit of a Tier 2 notice. It's still a really the only difference is that you're not able to replenish your hand going second. So if they do break your board, it looks like you're pretty done for. That's why it's not Tier 1. But in terms of being able to go off during your turn and pretty much fight through disruption, unless it's a Buster Lock, you're not going to find a much better deck. And obviously, I think it's going to be highly represented because a lot of people invested heavily into it. So naturally, you're just going to have more pilots of it, and people are going to have to deal with it more. I think you'll end up seeing it in Top Cut every once in a while. It did in the Pro Play Tours thing. You know, fizzling out. That's another reason it's not in Tier 1. But I think you'll still see it in Top Cut quite a bit because I don't see the deck getting hit any other ways until Needle Fiber gets banned or Link Ross. And we'll have to see how the deck can adjust from there. That may be the final straw, the final nail in the coffin, I should say. For now, it deserves to be Tier 2. I'm going to put Documatica here because there's so many different versions of Documatica, but Documatica definitely deserves to be in Tier 1. Looking at the top cuts here, there's a Documatica Eldlich Zodiac build, there's the Invoked Documatica stuff, so I'm just going to put this in general. It's just this engine is so good, and it's as good as people thought it was going to be. I'd be curious to see if anyone ever actually tops, but it just... When you're going up against big boards going second, especially ones that lock you out of your extra deck, the fact that you have just a natural way to deal with that, like you don't have to worry about going into your extra deck, is a really, really big deal. That's why I like it so much. So in the same note, I should say, I'm going to put Invoked Documatica. Well, I guess I can technically just kind of put these together in a sense. It's really good, and I think the Shadal stuff is going to be gaining popularity again too. The only problem is that it has such a hard time breaking the Destruction Sword lock, which is just popular against all of these decks basically. Just because, but if they don't block you, you're going to be able to break boards quite easily. You got your field spell, which is so powerful, especially when it's combined with Shadal. If you can get that field spell on the field, your opponent cannot negate the activation of fusion spells, and especially how much advantage you think you get off of Shadal cards is just so important. But again, I think because of that, it's just not going to be able to be in Top Cut nearly as much. There's not really in archetype ways to deal with a lot of issues. It's always in the extra deck. Coming up next is, to no one's surprise, I won't even spend too much time on this, is Dragon Link. It's be able to put up the most negates going first. And having that Buster Lock, and even if your opponent Dark Ruler no mores you, you better hope that you also have that Cosmic Cyclone in your hand, because otherwise you're still not going to be able to play your turn. And it's able to main deck so many hand traps in that 60 card variant that it does give you a chance going second, which is a huge problem for most going second decks. Outemancipators to a degree can do the same thing. It's just Dragon Link is able to put up a much stronger board than Outemancipators, and that's why it belongs in Top Cut. This is the deck that people are going to look forward to in terms of the way they construct their deck and in the way that they, look to beat it. Everyone's going to main deck a lot of cards to try to combat this, because it's going to be, if you don't, you're just going to get blown out of the water. Zodiac, this is a deck that has just been on the rise for just quite some time. It's been, for a while no one was talking about it, then it was hitting Rogue because all it had was Mega Cloth, but now Zeus is out, and that changes everything. Being able to just overlay for that Zeus, you're going to be able to pop off that effect multiple times. It is not once per turn, it is not once per chain. And no deck can do that. I can't think of any archetype. Some archetypes are able to do it once, but not that many times. And if you're able to just board wipe your opponent multiple times during their turn, and then you're going to be able to just clean house with how easy it is. Special summon. This is also a deck that can main like 15 hand traps. So without a doubt, good stuff, man. It's cool to see it. I know it's a popular strategy. We'll see if it maybe gets lightened on the ban list. That would be interesting to see. But for now, it's gonna stay there, and it's gonna be a deck that you're gonna have to worry about. You're gonna see a lot of main decking Kaijus, and I wasn't the one to start the trend, but I've been on that train for quite some time. Another cute deck that's really going around is Buster Bladers. I'm going to go ahead and place it in Tier 2. It's not that good, but the Invoked. But if you're able to Buster Lock your opponent, you're going to see this in Top Cut. It's just going to get those matchups in through the tournament. That's just going to be able to give it a chance. But once you start playing like maybe Invoked, just any sort of Dogmatica matchup, it's not going to do very well. Going second has a lot of problems because of how many traps it has to run. That's where you're going to run into a lot of issues. But still, it seems to be fairly consistent for the most part. I haven't really seen a live match of it. I would love to. It's not going to win you any tournaments. That's what it's going to come out to. But it is going to see some top representation. And that's why it belongs in Tier 2 to me. Sky Striker, I'm going to put it in casual. I'm actually a pretty big fan of Sky Strikers right now. You guys know my Numeron Sky Striker build and everything like that. It's just, there was quite a bit of people who brought it to these tournaments, and it just fell flat on its face. It would feel so wrong to say that it's better than, or on the same level as Prank Kids and Eldlich, when in reality it's just not. We'll see if they can get at least one engaged, what that would do for the deck. Maybe it does a lot, maybe it doesn't. We'll have to see. And last, but of course not least, is Virtual World. The highest representation, and the highest representation at Top Cut as well. But I will say that in the Pro Play Tours in-person tournament, there was nobody in the Top Cut, although I don't think anyone was really playing Virtual World. It's so new. Obviously, the online tournament has the advantage because people would just have access to the cards. I'm really close to maybe putting this in Tier 2, to be honest with you. It does seem to have some troubles going second. But any deck that can make True King of all calamities as easy as it can, and I think this is a deck that can make it the quickest, the most consistently, you're going to have a chance to just win any given game. You know what? I am going to put it in Tier 2, although it's really just 1.5 for the most part. It has some consistency problems, and I would like to see more in-person tournaments to see what kind of builds people are doing and to see if it actually can bust outside of the top 16 and make its way in the top 8 and maybe the top 4. That's when I'll start taking the deck a little more seriously, but for now I think it's okay in Tier 2. Nothing against it. I had it in Tier 2 before. It's very close to Tier 1. It's almost... Again, I think you could place it in anyone, but that's where I'm going to put it for now until I see some more results, especially more serious results, because when you have a deck that has that much representation going into one tournament, it's natural that it's going to have some form of representation in the top 16. But yeah, that's a simple little tier list video, guys. This evolves as I do. I'm learning the game just as much as anybody else. I've only been in it for about a year. So this is just the opinion of someone who kind of observes the game secondhand. I've never played in a competitive tournament. I would love to when Yu-Gi-Oh comes back and play some rogue strategies, especially like ABC Cyber Dragon. That'd be really cool for me. But other than that, guys, it's going to do it for today, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night.